Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Somatic Hound podcast. Today, I am interviewing my friend Kajsa van Overbeek, and she is a mindset coach from the Netherlands helping people with their reactive dogs. So I hope that you will sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode where we talk all about how mindset affects our stress levels, our emotional capacity, and how we feel about ourselves. So I'm going to let you just dive into this episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, welcome, friends. It's been a little while since I recorded an episode for you, so I'm really excited to get back. And today I have a guest, Kajsa van Overbeek, and she is a mindset coach for people who are working with their dogs. I think you also work with just people in general, or do you specifically work with people who are training their dogs?
I also work with people in general. I always say I work with highly empathic, perfectionistic people, and many of them happen to have a dog or to be taking care of a dog. But I will probably get into that in that the things that apply or the tools that you can use to improve the relationship with your dog, make it all feel a little bit less hard and less challenging, are the same tools that you use with your kids or that you use at work or just in general life. So I'm sure we'll get into that, but yes, I do work with both. And what usually happens is that people come in to work on everything that's related to their dog, and then they end up working with me on other things as well, like job changes or life changes, and well, you name it. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And I think we met through Instagram. And last year I had taken a mindset coaching program for my business to help develop my business. And so I believe you started coming up because Instagram was like, oh, she's looking for a mindset coach. And so then I started following your stuff, especially because I did feel like part of your niche is helping people who have reactive dogs, and that's what I do. Of course, I approach it more from the angle of that I'm a dog behaviorist and I'm coaching them specifically on training and modifying the dog's behavior and actually working directly with the dog. And you are kind of the missing piece of what I need in my business, which is I need somebody to coach the people on how to have a healthy mindset when, say, they're dealing with a stressful situation with their dog. And a big piece of the puzzle is how they mindfully approach that or their own feelings about the situation, because it's all connected. And we did have a really interesting conversation on whether or not it's helpful to see your dog as your mirror and how much do you want to involve your own personal feelings and your own kind of like baggage that you bring to the relationship. So I would just love for you to either continue to like kind of elaborate on what it is you do or like the process that you take people through, just kind of like, what is step one when someone's feeling stressed and they're not sure how to handle the stress that's coming up in relation to their dog training.
Ooh, good question. What is step one? I think, okay, so I do both one-on-one coaching and I have a small group coaching program. And I think step one and step two for both the group coaching program and the one-on-one coaching are similar, if not the same. And that is that I first show them what is causing their stress. And well, you've already done some coaching for your business, so you'll be familiar with the tools, but other people might say, well, it's obvious what's causing my stress. It's my dog. I mean, come on, like why, like this is a stupid question to ask me. It's the dog. And then the first thing that we dive into is that it is not necessarily the dog or what is happening, but how we're translating that in our brain. So what we're making it mean. And I usually give some very crude examples. I'll not make it that crude, but let's say reactivity, right? Because that's both of our jam. Um, your dog barking or lunging or losing their mind over something or someone that's passing by. You might think that that's the thing that is causing you stress. But I always tell people, okay, suppose that that's happening when you're at work. You're not there to see it. You have no idea. The dog's still doing the lunging and the barking and everything, but you wouldn't be the least bit concerned about it because it hasn't even entered your consciousness. You don't know about it. So how can it be that thing? How can it be the barking? It can't, because if it were the barking itself, then you would also be upset if it happened and you weren't there. Or you would be upset about it in every situation. Like if your dog's losing their mind because somebody's trying to break into your home, you'd be like, I don't care if we're calling this reactive or anything else. Thank you, dog. You're my savior. I love you. Right. So it's not the behavior itself, it's what we're making it mean. And I think that insight is key to moving forward, because if it means that it's something you're making it mean, that it's something that's happening inside your brain, inside your mind, then it means that that's something that you can change if you would want to. So that I would say, and might sound very abstract, but that is step one, realizing that it's our thoughts and that it's happening inside of our head, the process that is causing our stress. And then the second part to that is learning to deal with stress and learning not just stress, learning to deal with anger, learning to deal with frustration, sadness, all of the emotions. And by learning to deal with that, I mean not reacting to it, because that's what a lot of people think of me. It's like, I can't get angry, because if I get angry, then I'm going to start yelling at people. I say, no, if you're angry and you start yelling at people, that means you're reacting to the anger. That doesn't mean you're processing the anger. It doesn't mean you're dealing with the anger. So it's learning to feel their feelings and learning what they can do with that so that they don't have to react to it. Because that's a big thing, because if they're stressed and they react to the stress, that again, that's probably ending up in yelling at the dog, or if it's frustrations, like, oh my gosh, my dog's yelling again. I'm out on the street. I can't handle this. I'm so frustrated. I might yank the leash, even though I want to do positive reinforcement training. I want to do force-free training, but my frustration got the best of me. I don't know what to do with the frustration. And so the reaction is I yank the leash, which then sets off a whole negative spiral of behaviors that make everything worse. So that's my step two always. And I think that's the case in both programs is okay, learning to feel. So that means also learning to recognize what you feel. Because in our day and age, a lot of people have gotten very disconnected from their bodies and from their feelings. Most people think in recent research, we're only able to name 3 or 4 emotions, whereas that they could feel, whereas there are tons more. So that's really a big part of it. I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but it's feeling those feelings, being able to deal with them, and also not judging the feelings. And that's a big part. I think I'm going to say 90% of my job is showing people what the additional layer of pain is that they are causing themselves, and shaving that additional layer off. Because I always say, when you're living with a reactive dog, or let's say with a dog who is very ill, who's also, putting a lot of demand on you and your family, or a dog who has separation anxiety, you name it, or maybe just a dog, just taking care of a dog is already quite imposing on your life, and sometimes that gets to you. So what I never want to do is tell people that, living with a reactive dog or a dog who has an illness or just any dog who just takes up a lot of time and energy and some in your life. And sometimes even with your regular Disney dog, you might be saying, wow, right now I would love it if I didn't have to take care of another living being. But especially for reactive dogs and the more challenging dogs, I don't want to say, just change your mindset about it. Just change your thoughts about it. It's not that you have a reactive dog. It's just that you don't think that that's great. But I want you to just change that and think, it's fantastic I have a reactive dog. It's fantastic that I have this very challenging dog or this dog with separation anxiety. This is great. That's gaslighting. That's toxic positivity. That's not it. But what we can do is say, okay, this is rougher than average, but we're maybe making it even worse by piling on maybe extra thoughts of these are all the things that I can't do or I have to. That's a big one. A lot of people say, like, I have to take care of this dog. I can't rehome my dog because that would mean I'm a terrible person. There's all these thoughts that pile up on top of that, which might feel very true, but they're not necessarily that. I always say, what do you mean you have to take care of your dog? Like, you could just drive out there, tie your dog to a tree. I know this sounds very terrible. Like, tie your dog to a tree and leave. There's people who do that. So don't tell me that you can't do that. You can rehome your dog. Not a problem. You can take your dog to the shelter. And then they're like, but I don't want to. Say, okay, that is different. Because how does I don't want to, or I love my dog too much, I want to take care of my dog, feel compared to I have to take care of this dog,
Mm-hmm.
or I can't rehome my dog.
Mm.
That puts on a lot of pressure. Whereas when you open up the door a little bit to, well, I guess technically I could. I guess technically I don't have to do any of this, but I choose to do this.
Mm.
That starts to take a bit of the pressure off and makes it a little, it just opens the door a little bit. And it takes off this, and that's what I mean by the extra layer of pressure of I have to, or I can't, or if I don't do this, I'm a terrible dog owner. I always use guardian, but most people still say owner. All of those extra thoughts and all of the extra pain that you're creating for yourself, that we can get rid of. And then that makes life with your dog 10 times or 100 times nicer. And it actually also makes you, progress in your training faster most of the time. I want to say 100% of the time with the people that I work with, because it's the same thing there. It's like, I make a mistake in my training. This is terrible. This is a setback. Now it's going to take me longer to get to where I want to be with my dog. Okay. Is that true? What happens when you think of your training and what just happened as a setback? And usually most people tell me, well, then I don't feel so good. That's kind of, demotivating, demoralizing. So, okay. So what do you do when you feel sad or demoralized like that? Well, then I'm sort of on the couch. I'm opening a bag of potato chips, watching Netflix. So, yeah. And so, what do you do when your dog comes up to you and then wants some attention? Well, then usually I kind of go, I'm sorry, I can't work with you right now because I'm just too busy feeling miserable about the training setback that we just had. And then what happens in the end? You're not training your dog. You're spending your valuable time that you could build a relationship with your dog, or that you could be going out with friends, or that you could spend on your self-care, feeling bad because what happened with your dog in your brain gets turned into a setback or gets turned into this is going to take it, this is going to make it take longer for us to get to the point where we want to go. Those thoughts are what I want to say poisonous. And those are thoughts that you can change so that this whole wallowing and feeling miserable and being on the couch and not working with anybody part gets cut out. And imagine like if you have all of that time available to do other things, that makes your overall life feel much more fun and much more doable. And yeah. And so that's that layer that we're peeling
Yeah.
off that we're trying to get, yeah, people to look at in a different light, but not necessarily, tell them that it's the best thing since sliced bread that they got a reactive dog instead of the what I call the Disney dog.
Yes. Okay. Wow. Okay. There's a lot of
That, that,
stuff there.
that was a lot. Sorry. I was on a
No, it's
roll.
good. It's great. I just want to keep track in my head of some things that came up for me. Definitely the layers. I've noticed that with myself, and retraining my brain through the coaching program that I did has helped me catch myself when, like, say I do make a mistake, or for example, this is not dog related, but with a person, I was having a certain feeling. I'm trying really hard to work on my embodiment, listening to my body, my intuition about certain situations, and then like going with my gut feeling if I feel like I need to set a boundary. And there was a situation where I felt like I needed to set a boundary with somebody, but I did not. And then I felt bad, but the bad feeling was mainly the fact that I was just punishing myself for not being further along in my own evolution, where I was like, oh, I knew better. I should have listened to my gut feeling and I should have set a boundary.
Yes.
And so that was the part that was actually making me feel really bad, was not that what happened as a consequence of me not setting the boundary, but like all the thoughts that I had about, just beating myself up over, oh, I knew better. I should have done better. And so I think that comes into the dog training as well. That layer is what just kills our energy. And like you said, then we get stuck in, maybe a Netflix binge because we're feeling bad about ourselves. And so if we could just, it sounds like what you're doing for humans is helping them to increase their emotional capacity to deal with stress, which is exactly what I'm doing with the dogs. And so it's a really beautiful parallel. So that's really interesting to me because I would like to help my clients with that. And I think the other thing that came up for me was when you talked about naming feelings, because I just heard, I think it might have been on a Huberman podcast, where they were saying that in languages and cultures that have many nuanced words for lots of different feelings, that people are actually more self-aware and better at self-regulating because they have the language to uh, label those feelings and be aware of them. So I think maybe we can delve either in that direction where it's like accepting the situation, being aware of the feelings about the situation, and then just allowing those feelings to be there rather than like what you said, like glossing over it with toxic positivity. Like, I think that's really important.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what you said about being able or having more words to describe the different feelings that's 100% helpful. Because what I say, or I say multiple things about feelings, but one of the things I say is you can use your feeling as a trigger. Like it's just as a trigger with a dog. You see when you realize, hey, this is frustration that I'm feeling, you can figure out why is it that I'm feeling frustrated? What is it that I want that I'm not getting? If it's jealousy, like I think jealousy is always a beautiful emotion. People That's one that people beat themselves up about, right? If I'm jealous, that means that I'm not I'm not a good person because good people don't covet what other people have. And so I should never be jealous. And I said, of course you should be jealous. It's amazing if you are, because and the only thing you need to do is listen to it and figure out, oh, why am I jealous? Is there something that I am actually wanting that I'm not letting myself have? That's one of the things. So the more you can differentiate between the different emotions, the more easy it becomes to figure out what they're trying to tell you. Because if you get stuck at the level of, okay, I'm angry. Okay, but is it angry? Is it seething? Is it mildly annoyed? Is it more um yeah, are we more in the jealous, angry direction? Like, where are we going? It helps you to figure out what's going on. And the other thing that you said, like, where you said, I'm also working on this with the dogs, is, and I think you do that a lot in your work, and the way you work with your dogs is, and what I call completing the stress cycle, or completing the cycle of feeling. Um, the way I've heard you describe it is like when a dog's already amped up, they need an outlet for that feeling. And that's what we do as well, or what I work on with people as well, is like once the feeling's there, it's there. It's not going to go away. It's not, and then the only way out is through, if you do not want to react to it. So you need to complete feeling that feeling. And if you don't complete it, if you don't feel your way through it and you don't react to it, but you suppress it, that doesn't mean it's gone. It's just going to fester in your body, and it's going to either show up later in an exaggerated form, or it is going to show up in the form of illness,
Mm.
or eczema, or autoimmune diseases, or gut problems, or whatnot. So it's so important to be aware of those feelings, and also to learn, to learn how to feel them. That's what they're called. They're for feeling. They're not for suppressing. They're not for reacting to, although granted, we all will. We're still human. But just to be able to complete those cycles all the
Mm.
way to the end is so important, but especially using them as information. And I think maybe just to come back to relations, or to come back to other people that we encounter, it's also very helpful to recognize that some emotions in the other person are completely appropriate for the situation. So we tend to be upset when somebody's angry. For example, let's say your reactive dog is barking at someone out in the street, and this person yells at you. Maybe let's imagine that they have their kid with them, and they yell at you and they say, well, leave that mutt at home, you should muzzle them, or you shouldn't be out in the street, you should just whatever, all the thoughts and all the things that we get told by other people, and that generally make us feel upset. I mean, we would be easier if the other person had just said, oh, that's okay, I have a reactive dog too, I completely understand, right? Then you get to feel all understood and happy. And for most people, it makes it easier to then deal with what was going on. But that's not the case, because the person you have opposite you now is yelling at you and calling you names. They're angry. And what helps is to go, yeah, but of course they're angry. I mean, they have their little kid with them. They're probably not a dog trainer. They probably don't know what reactivity is. They're a parent and they're worried for their child. Their papa bear or mama bear, his stuff is coming up, and they're angry. Of course they're angry. It would be weird if they wouldn't. It would be weird if they wouldn't be protective of their kid. And that then helps you deal with that a little bit better as well. So it's not just recognizing the feelings in yourself, but it's also recognizing feelings in other people. And also, maybe that's even more, if people want to take anything from this, realizing that there are no bad feelings,
Mm.
that there are just feelings, because that's what we tend to categorize them, right? We can't be jealous. Jealousy is a bad feeling. We shouldn't be anger is a bad feeling. Preferably not sad either. Sad, we're generally not always putting it in the bad camp, but we definitely wouldn't really want to feel it for too long. We'd rather be happy. And all of that as well. Sorry, I'm a bit over the place. It's just because I'm excited talking about this stuff. Like sadness also. Why wouldn't you want to be sad? Why wouldn't you want to be angry? Why wouldn't you want to be frustrated? Once you know what it means, again, like I said, or you can see it as a trigger or as an indicator of something that you really want. And what I generally say is your feelings show you what your values are. They show you what you value. If you're frustrated, it's because there's something that you really want. If you're sad, it's because you lost something or that you really loved. You know, I always say sadness again is appropriate. If my dog were to pass away, I don't want to not be sad. I want to be sad. The fact that I'm sad tells me that I love my dog, tells me that that is something that I care about. If somebody does something to me that I don't like and I get angry about it, it shows me, what I care about and what I consider as polite, how I want to show up in the world. My value is you don't yell at people when you try to communicate something. You try to communicate it in a peaceful way, maybe. So when you realize all of that, you realize, okay, if I'm angry about that, that just shows me what I care about, what I think is important. Now, I can't stop the other person from yelling at me because that's already happened. They're already doing it. But what I can do is take this information and figure out how I want to use it and how I want to show up in the world. I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, I think that does help. It's like about being, like you said, less reactive, like just um kind of, I mean, we all have moments where we're not really in control of ourselves and we do react and we act out and maybe we do raise our voices. And I think these are also opportunities to just look at ourselves and say, oh, that's a part of myself that I haven't healed yet, or that's a part of myself that feels scared, actually, un like looking underneath the anger and wondering, oh, why did I actually get so upset just then? And the real reason is because I felt fear. So I think, yeah, unraveling that, or like peeling back those layers of the onion and just becoming more self-aware is, to me, that's the key of the whole thing. And then not punishing yourself when you do make a mistake, and say my dogs were irritating me and I did raise my voice and I yelled at them, and then I saw that it actually scared them, and then I felt guilty about it. So now I have the fact that I reacted, I got angry in a moment when I wasn't in control of myself, and then I have the guilt about how I acted. And so there's just so many different things to deal with. So, do you have any specific practices for that that you could share? I know it's a very um, involved process, like coaching, but do you have any tips or just kind of general practices that people could incorporate?
100%. So I think one of the first tips I would have is if you've been in a situation that was somehow upsetting or where you realized that you didn't react in the way that you wanted to, is to just sort of go back and think it through in hindsight. So when you're sitting on the couch, or maybe if you're a journaling person, you have a journaling practice, journal about it, just to sort of, like you said, peel back the layers of the onion and figure out what's going on again. And when you do that, use my favorite emotion, curiosity.
Mhm.
Because when you tap into your curiosity, you're not judgmental. You're not judging yourself. You're just going like, huh, that's interesting what happened. Oh, I got angry. Oh, I yelled at my dog. Or, oh, I didn't do A, B, C, or D. That's very interesting. I wonder what's going on. When you're coming with that energy, just analyze it after the fact. It creates some awareness as to what's going on. And people might say, yeah, but that's not going to stop me from doing it the next time. I always say, probably not. You're probably going to do it another 20 times, and you'll probably be sort of analyzing it again a couple of hours later, a couple of days later. Maybe if it's something from way back in your lifetime, maybe it's years later, you'll be doing that analysis or running that analysis a couple of times. But that's okay. That's the process. It's just creating awareness. That's fine. The goal is not to immediately rush to the end result or rush to being able to stop whatever it is that you didn't want to do in the moment. So just be okay with, thinking back to it, writing about it, talking out loud to yourself, to a friend, whatever it is, but without the judgment. So with the curiosity. And what you will notice is if you do that, then at a certain point, you'll recognize it happening in the moment. You'll be like, ooh, I'm angry and I'm wanting to do this and I can't stop it. And you still do it. But that's okay. That's progress. You're in the moment, realizing it. You're not able to stop the train yet. That's fine. Again, you'll just analyze it after the fact, maybe journal about it. Again, if they always say you could talk to a lamppost, you could have people talk to a lamppost an hour every week, and that would help them tremendously. Like go talk to your lamppost about it. But again, and see it as a win. Go, I wasn't able to stop it yet, but I was on it in the moment. I saw myself do that. Couldn't get there yet, but still, this is amazing. And when you do that a couple of times, you will be able at one point to stop yourself in the moment. And then maybe the next time you'll get to the point where you don't even have to stop yourself because your brain is not even going there. Your brain is, for example, not even going to anger about what the other person said, or frustration about what your dog's doing, or frustration about how you're reacting to your dog. You're not even going to go there. So that's sort of the zoomed out overall thing. Interrupting what is going on really has to do with feeling your feelings. So let's take your example of where maybe you were loud or you yelled at your dog. And so that was probably already coming from frustration. And then you're guilty or you're feeling guilty afterwards. Now, if you don't recognize that, you will, the loop will be, we're going into Netflix binging, we're going into opening the bottle of wine, we're going into whatever, eating. Or, and there's more benign versions of this, but they can still be damaging in the long run. Like I'm going to um over Google ways to prevent this from happening, or I'm going to like delve into finding more information on training or whatever. I'm going to over educate myself almost. That could be another thing. That is if you don't recognize that the guilt's there and you just, again, react or act from it. But if you become more aware of what your feelings are, you can maybe recognize, oh, I'm feeling guilty right now. And then my tip would be to say, what does that feel like? And then maybe close your eyes or whatever you feel comfortable with, and figure out, what does that feel like in my body? And I really mean that very literally. Where do I feel it? If I feel guilt, where do I feel it? Do I feel that in my shoulders? Or do I feel it in my lungs? Can't I breathe anymore? Or rather, am I nauseous? Or is it more sort of a stinging feeling in my head? Is it behind my eyes? Is it travel? So it's really about focusing on your body and really focusing on what it feels like. What does guilt feel like for you? It doesn't have to feel the same for me, but you will find that when you start to focus on the feeling, it will dissipate. And if it
Mm.
dissipates, that means you're not going to react to it. You're not going to act from it. So you're breaking the cycle at guilt. And that's amazing because you now, like made the first step to not going down the whole rabbit hole of negativity. And what you'll find is if you're able to do that a couple of times, maybe the next time you can already recognize, ooh, I feel myself getting frustrated. Ooh, what does frustration feel like? Again, go into my body. Oh, I feel everything. Everything in my body is frustration right now. It's like my hands are, for me, that would be even, I'm doing it as people can't see that, but my hands would go and go into sort of claw mode. Oh, my muscles would tighten. I would really feel myself wanting to react. And then I would be, okay, I'm feeling frustration right now. Let's focus on that. What is, focus on the muscles, focus on my hands, focus on my lungs, just to let that feeling pass again, so that I don't have to finish that negativity spiral or that negativity cycle and go from there. And then once that feeling's gone, then I can analyze, like, okay, I got frustrated. Why was that? How can I prevent that in the future? Because the frustration right now, whatever happened right now, I can't do anything about that anymore anyway. But that would be like literally my tip is feeling it, focusing on your body and really ask yourself, where do I feel this? What does this feel like? Is it something that's hard or is it something that's soft? Is it bubbly? Is it spiky? Is it any question you can come up with and focusing on that just as an exercise. And you will find that the feeling subsides. I
Yeah,
hope.
that's great. That's a great embodiment practice and thinking about how those feelings that cause us stress are related to some sort of constriction in the body. And, I've worked with different therapists and coaches, and one that comes to mind is Irene Lyon, and she has a practice where you do work on feeling where those feelings are in the body and where the constriction is, and you actually kind of go further into the constriction, like purposefully tensing the body and then relaxing. And I think that helps exactly what you said. Once you're actually feeling the pure emotion in your body, you're processing it, it's moving through, and then you don't have to react to it as a trigger. And I also really love what you said about this being a process, that just because one time you journaled about something doesn't mean all of a sudden you're perfectly self-aware and now you've changed your wiring or your programming. Like it doesn't work like that. You're like slowly chipping away at this kind of massive wall inside of yourself. That's how I feel it. Like all the programming that's built up in you from your childhood, from, how we're programmed in society to suppress our emotions. I think specifically with women and anger is a thing. But obviously, most of our programming comes from our family of origin between the ages of like 0 and 7. And it's a long process, not only to recognize why we have certain patterns and reactions and triggers, but then to undo them. So I love what you said, that like even just recognizing it as it comes up in the moment, even if you're still not able to stop yourself, that's progress. And to kind of like celebrate that or take inventory and say, oh, well, at least this time I recognized it. And then maybe the next time I'll recognize it and my reaction will be like a little bit less. And, what you're doing, helping people take away that extra layer of guilt about the reaction, I think sometimes it's the guilt or the thoughts that keep us locked in that cycle
Yeah.
because of our own feelings of self-worth. And then that reaction gives us a reason to continue this sort of like self-punishment cycle where then we have less emotional capacity and we're more likely to keep repeating that
To repeat
pattern.
it 100%.
Yeah.
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 And I just a thought popped up as well where I realized that which is why I love working with dog guardians is because I can draw so many parallels to the dogs as well. And a lot of people will do all the things for their dog and not realize that they can do the same thing for themselves. So for example, like you said, realizing that feeling something in the moment, even though you're not able to stop it, is progress, is a win, is the same thing as what you would do with your dog. It'd be maybe, yes, my dog still reacted, but the reaction wasn't as quote unquote bad as it was. Or yes, they reacted, but the recovery was so much faster, which is a win. So being able to reframe all that negativity, because we're prone to negativity. We have what we call a negativity bias. Our brain, left to its own devices, will always default to seeing the negative, which means we have to work and we have to really create a habit of seeing wins and seeing the positives. And in order to do that, it helps to be able to reframe things. And so it's really looking for all those ways in which we are making progress. So like with our dogs, progress can be in the recovery time. Progress can be in how uh yeah how bad I don't want to say bad, but how loud the reaction was, or maybe the reaction was 10 seconds instead of 30 seconds. It's the same thing for us. um Maybe so now that my brain's on is firing. So another thing that I love to point out to people is something that they often do for their dog, but they forget to do for themselves. So if our dog is, well, I mean, over threshold is a sort of a concept that is used in many ways, and some people even don't even want to go to over threshold. But let me put it in just layman's terms. If your dog's completely freaking out and you can't reach them anymore, and there's not a treat scatter or a tug toy in the world that can get them out of it, what do? You just you go, okay, well, that's it. We're going home. I'm taking my dog out of the situation, and we're gonna have to find a way to calm them down, maybe a little bit away from the situation. Maybe that's where a treat scatter works. Maybe we have to go all the way home. We have to take them completely out. It's the same thing for us. We think we always have to be able to deal with everything in the moment, but we're an animal too, and we redline too, and we sometimes completely freak out too. So then what do? You take yourself out of the situation. That's perfectly fine. It can even be the situation with your dog. Maybe you're at one point so fed up. Let's just honestly say that. Let's talk about that. Sometimes you can be completely fed up with your dog. Like, I cannot be with you right now. I cannot handle you, cannot stand you. I cannot hear a single bark. I am going to take myself out of this situation. But it's something that people forget. Like, I will do that for my dog. I will take them out of the stressful environment, but I won't do it for myself. But you can, and you should, because everybody's going to benefit from that. And I even don't even think that that should always be the reason. If only you benefit from it, that's that's good enough. Because that's another thing that we tend to do. We tend to think we can do it, like we can take time for ourselves so that other people can benefit from that. So it's okay if the end result is that it helps other people. That's how conditioned we are, mostly women, to serve others. And yes, that is usually the end result. Yes, usually other people and your dog and your relationships, they benefit. But I also want to maybe just let people think about, but maybe it's enough if the reason you do it is that just you benefit, no one else. Just to break some of that conditioning, since you mentioned societal conditioning earlier, also.
Yes, I think that's a great example. And I I do believe there are times when it's best for me and my dogs to have time away from each other. And sometimes that means I go to my room and I shut the door. And as long as everybody's in a safe place, contained or in the yard where they can relax on their terms, or like my youngest, newest rescue dog, she has her own room and she actually loves having that space. And so I either go to my room or I ask her to go to her room. And sometimes it means I spend a little extra time just sitting in my car before I come inside, or just giving myself a little bit of space or making up an errand to do so I can leave my dogs alone for a couple of hours because I work from home. We're together all the time. And sometimes they can't really relax when I'm here because my energy is very intense, or they're kind of always looking for attention, affection, treats, playtime. Sometimes the best thing is to just have space and also to recognize, like, hey, I can't be around you right now. Like, I need to process my feelings away from you.
And
So
that's fine. And not beating yourself up for wanting that. And I think there's two ways to this, right? I can tell people you get to believe that it's okay for you to be away from your dogs without anyone telling you. It's a belief that you can adopt. And hearing that other people are going through the same thing really makes it a whole lot easier to adopt that belief, which is why I also think it's so important to share also these things, to share the struggles, and to also say out loud, yeah, sometimes I don't want to be with my dog. And that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. That doesn't mean that I don't love my dog. It just means that in that moment, I don't want to be with my dog. We don't have to put any judgment on it. We don't have to make that mean anything. That's just the case. And you know what? You're not the only one. Like I want to say that 90%, I'm not gonna say 100 because I don't know. I can't look inside other people's minds, but 90% of the people with dogs have that feeling every
mm,
now and then. And that's fine. But that's also why I love that, like people like you and other people share these things on Instagram, on other platforms as well, so that we can normalize that it's not all rainbows and daisies and unicorns. It's not at all. I guess sometimes it's hard work. It is.
it's a
Same as
lot of
with you.
work. I had somebody like asking me, what do I do? I said, oh, I'm a dog trainer. Like, what do I do for work? I said, well, I train dogs. And he was like, oh, is that even really work? And I was like, actually, it's really hard work. And, getting back to the point of taking space and whatever, I think a lot of people work at an office, or even if they work from home, they're working away from their dogs and not able to give their dogs attention all day. And so then when, like, I get together with my friends and we go for a hike, they want to bring their dogs with them because they haven't spent enough time with their dogs. And I often don't bring my dogs, and they're so surprised. And I'm like, I've been with my dogs all day, working them, training them, walking them. Like, I want to go for a walk without my dogs. And it surprises people. But I think it also comes back to this thing of choice, which earlier on you had mentioned, like when people feel like they have options and they're choosing to do something, it's really different than feeling like, oh, I'm going out in the woods. I should bring my dog, and I'm going to feel guilty if I don't because I'm projecting that my dog would really enjoy this. But the problem is, I won't enjoy it if I'm just doing it out of obligation.
Yeah, 100%. And just it is a choice and you're making it. And then to learn to stand behind that choice, that is work, like without feeling guilty. But well, actually I might have a tip for that because that's a process as well. What a lot of people think is that let's say they want to start doing that, right? They want to start going for walks without their dog. Um, but they know they're going to feel guilty. And then I say, fine, take that. Just go like, I'm going to go for a walk by myself and I'm going to feel guilty, and that's okay. Because what people generally tend to want to do is, I want to go for a walk and I don't want to feel guilty. And if I know I'm going to go for a walk and then I will feel guilty, and then kind of the walk's ruined. That's the second layer. Like, I'm feeling guilty on the walk. So that's bad because I should be on this walk not feeling guilty. Like, no, how you're making it worse is the judgment on going on a walk feeling guilty. So what if you just told yourself, I'm going to go just practicing on a walk by myself and I'm going to be feeling guilty for a bit. And that's okay. Usually that already gives so much of a relief that the walk already becomes kind of nice. And what you see happening is when people give themselves permission to do that and feel guilty, is that slowly starts to morph in not feeling guilty anymore because of the acceptance. And so that's maybe a tip that I would have. Like, if you feel like I want to go and do something, but I know I'm going to feel annoyed with it or whatever the feeling is, give yourself permission. Well, like, yeah, that's something that I'm going to do, and I'm going to feel guilt. I'm going to feel annoyed. I'm going to feel, I don't know, maybe something else about it. And that's okay.
Like I'm a
Right.
bad dog owner, or I'm not doing enough for my dogs. I think that's common. So I think the gist is like making space for the feelings.
For everything. I always say radical acceptance.
Mm.
Radical acceptance of everything that comes up, of your thoughts, of your feelings, of yourself, and of your dog. And it doesn't matter which of these you start with. If it's very easy for you to accept your dog for all of who they are, all of their big feelings, all of their reactions, lean into that, because that will help you accept yourself for all of who you are, including maybe your reactivity.
Mm.
So it's really just accepting. And like you said, sometimes you feel like maybe you're not doing enough for your dog. Go like, yeah, I'm a human. And sometimes I don't feel like I'm doing enough for my dog. Sometimes that just creeps up on me and I think, oh, I could be doing better. Okay, note it. That's it. Like,
Yeah,
note it. Thank
yeah.
you, brain. Doesn't mean that I actually should be doing more. Maybe, maybe not. I could, but sometimes that's just the thought that pops up into my head. That's okay. And then I can see what I want to do with it. And maybe what I want to do with it is nothing. And just let it be there. Go like, thank you. You can, and this is what I liken it to. You can sit in the back seat of the car, come along for the ride, but I'm driving and this is where we're going. Just be there. No, this is okay, so this is where my brain is going now because of this example of radical acceptance and accepting things. Let's say your dog has a history of that maybe has bitten another dog, where there's been like something like pretty significant happened, and now you want to go on a dog walk, but every time you go on a dog walk, you think, oh, something could happen. What if they bite someone else? What if they hurt someone else? What if I feel completely stressed about it? Then, like what we were talking about is accepting everything that comes up would be, I want to say, duh. Yes, you're going to go outside and you're going to be upset, or you're going to fear that something bad could happen again. And actually, when you think about it, that's probably true. It could. It totally could. So, what is wrong with going outside and being afraid that something could happen again? absolutely nothing. The thing is, when you think that you should be able to go outside and not be stressed about something potentially happening, that's when you get messed up because now you're adding so much pressure on yourself that's completely not useful and not realistic because your brain has evidence that something bad could have happened because it did. Your dog's already done it. So why not go, yes, I'm going to go outside on a dog walk and I'm afraid that something could happen. And that's okay because that just
Yeah.
means I care and I care about my environment, I care about other people, and I care about my dog. And
Yes.
I don't need to change that. Same as I don't need to change feeling guilty while for going on a walk without my dog. But just accepting that that fear is there, accepting that that guilt is there, that is what in the end is going to make it, I'm not going to say disappear, but grab less of a hold of you and
Mm-hmm.
diminish and just lower in strength, I guess is what I want to say. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like radical acceptance and
Yes.
accepting yourself like that can make it easier to accept your dog. Accepting your dog can make it easier to accept yourself because it's simply a skill, like allowing all of these things to be there
Mm-hmm.
that carries over to everywhere.
Yes. Great. I think let's think about concluding in a few minutes, but I think that's a really great example of where in our other conversation we kind of touched on whether it's useful or helpful to see your dog as your mirror and see that your dog is mirroring your own emotional state. Because what you're saying about the dog that's gotten in a dog fight or bitten somebody, and now the person is nervous and stressed out when they take the dog out in public. I always try to reassure my clients that, like, you should feel a little bit stressed out. Like, that is completely normal. And if you weren't stressed out, I would be worried because your dog has shown you that they have the potential to be reactive and potentially cause harm. Now, I don't want to continually focus on that because we want to move forward and make progress and allow space for a new reality to come in. But if that person is feeling nervous, it's exactly what you said. It just means you care about your dog, you care about other people, you're a caring person who's aware of what this situation really is. And so instead of saying, oh, you have to be calm, the dog's never going to be calm unless you're calm. Like, no, we have to work through this as a whole process where it's like, you're a human being. You should be a little bit stressed out about this. Like, that is how you should be feeling. So I think it's exactly what you said, this acceptance of, yeah, it's a situation where these feelings are going to come up, but we have to work through it anyway. We have to say, this kind of sucks right now, but it's going to get better. And the only thing we can do is work on it and make those little baby steps of progress towards the dog having a little bit less of a reaction. And then the human relaxes a little bit. And I think we had talked about that like upward spiral, where it's like
Yes.
you recognize, oh, this is getting better. And now I can relax. And now that I'm more relaxed, I can make space for my dog's feelings and I can make space for my feelings. And now that I'm not resisting the feelings and completely resisting the reality of the situation, it just feels easier. And now I have more capacity to deal with what's happening.
100%. And I always, if that is the way people see mirroring their dog, or your dog picks up on your stress, or whatever the way is that you want to describe it, then I'm like 100% for it. That's exactly how I would see it too. And I think the way through, again, the way through it is, or to the end of it is through it. You have to feel it, you have to accept it. And you said earlier it just sucks a little bit right now. That reminds me of something that long distance backpackers say a lot, or it's the motto is embrace the suck. And I think that probably sums it up. That's also acceptance in its purest form. Yes, right now, this sucks. And that's okay. The trying to fight that and trying to make it anything else or anything different, that's what's going to trip you up. Same thing with the stress. Like if you're worried about your dog picking up on your stress, that isn't a layer of added stress that you don't need, but simply going, yeah, I'm stressed. Okay, let's go. I'm stressed and let's go. That
Mhm.
helps. And then we can still we still don't have to deny your dog picking up on your stress, but it is coming at it from a slightly different angle, like tweaking it a little bit and then realizing, okay, but when I don't stress about being stressed, that's when I'm less stressed. And that's when my dog gets to be less stressed as well. Then I'm all for it. But like you said, when there's trainers who really hammer on people, you can't be stressed because your dog's going to notice that. That is not useful because the
Mm.
people are stressed. So I mean, it's the same. And if we're comparing to our dogs, again, it's like you're telling your scared dog or your upset dog, like, don't be scared. You can't be scared, dog. You don't, right? That also doesn't work. So if it doesn't work for the dog, why would it work for us? Like, don't be something, don't feel something. It's just physically not possible.
Or telling someone, oh, just calm down, or just let it go. Or anytime someone says just do it like this.
We're talking about triggers. If there's ever a triggering sentence
Yeah.
for humans, that is it.
Yeah. So, okay, this was great. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add or, a conclusion or you can just let people know how they can reach you so they can get help with this?
Yeah, I think I am going to do that. I do hope that I've kind of been able to communicate how these are general life skills in a sense that help with everything, like learning to feel your feelings, figuring out what what the belief is that you have that is making things worse than they need to be. And then there's so many more aspects to it, but it is going to help you so much, both with training your dog. It's going to help you find the upward spiral with your dog, but it's going to transfer to so many other places. But where can people find me? That's what you asked. Instagram is at the Russ Cattle Dog because my dog's name is Rusty and he's a cattle dog. So it's the Russ Cattle Dog, where I also put some posts and every now and then I'm not that great at reels and stuff, but I'm trying to put some more reels and give you some more mindset content there. My podcast is called Rough Around the Edges. You can find that rough with double F at the end. You can find that on all the major podcast platforms. And then my website is my name, Kajsa van Overbeek. Maybe you'll put it in the show notes because I'm pretty sure nobody ever will be able to
Of
spell it
course.
from just that .com, which is where you also find all the information about coaching. But you can reach out on Instagram. That's how we met. I'm a real life person. I do answer to DMs. It may take a while. Sometimes they get lost. Cough, cough. But yeah, that's all the places.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll link everything so people can just find the links. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. Again, our second conversation, just as wonderful as the first. So I really appreciate your time and thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was really great, and I hope people can make sense of my all over the place ramblings.
Yes, it was great. All right, you take care.
Thank you.